Something serious is unfolding. And this time, the finger is pointed directly at Mercedes. Just days before pre-season testing, multiple F1 teams have demanded an emergency meeting with the FIA, after suspicions emerged of a hidden engine mechanism that may have given Mercedes a massive performance advantage, without technically breaking any rules. The issue? A so-called compression trick, an adaptive engine system that alters combustion ratios once the car heats up, evading static inspections, while potentially delivering 0.4 seconds per lap in extra performance. It's legal, under current wording. But several teams now believe Mercedes was hiding the system during dyno checks, and that it violates the very spirit of the 2026 power unit regulations. And if the FIA agrees, we could be just days away from one of the most politically explosive engine scandals since Ferrari's secret fuel bypass in 2019. Because if the trick is banned now, Mercedes might have to rewrite their entire engine concept right before the first test begins. Officially, there is no protest. Not yet. The FIA has not accused Mercedes of wrongdoing. There's been no bulletin, no technical directive, and no formal investigation, at least not on paper. But within the paddock, the situation is far from quiet. 3 teams, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Aston Martin, have reportedly contacted the FIA directly, requesting an emergency clarification on what they're calling engine adaptive thermal systems. The term may sound vague, but inside engineering circles, it's extremely specific. It refers to a class of technology that changes how the power unit behaves once it passes a certain temperature threshold. That includes compression mapping, fuel vapor behavior, and hybrid deployment modulation based on dynamic combustion ratios. What's being suggested, subtly but firmly, is that Mercedes may have created a system that shifts its internal combustion characteristics after startup, making the engine appear legal in static checks, but operate very differently under race conditions. And the most important detail? There's no current rule explicitly forbidding this behavior, because the engine checks are done cold. That's what the teams want changed. They're not asking for Mercedes to be penalized. Not directly. They're asking the FIA to redefine legality under heat, to close the window they believe Mercedes is exploiting. So far, Mercedes has made no public statement, but internally, their position is clear. The engine complies with every technical regulation as written, and until the FIA says otherwise, they have no reason to adjust their design, which leaves the sport in a precarious position, with a loophole that may not be illegal, but is already tearing apart trust between the teams. This entire controversy may have stayed hidden, if not for a single leak, one that never should have reached rival teams. According to internal sources, it started with an engineering summary from a component supplier. Not a big name, not even directly under Mercedes HPP, but a subcontractor working on adaptive intake flow sensors. That document, meant to outline heat-related variability tolerances, included references to a compression shift protocol, a phrase that immediately caught the attention of someone at a rival team, who'd previously worked with Mercedes. From there, everything escalated. The document didn't prove anything, but it lined up too closely with observed anomalies. During private bench testing in late January, multiple teams, especially Ferrari, had already been tracking inconsistencies in Mercedes test runs. The same power unit would deliver different combustion efficiency curves, under nearly identical external conditions. Now, with this leak, they had a plausible explanation. The suspicion? That Mercedes engine behaves differently once it crosses a live heat threshold, essentially activating a second, more aggressive mode that isn't visible during static inspection or cold bench certification. That's where the trust began to break down. Because this goes beyond clever engineering. If Mercedes knew this behavior would go undetected by the FIA's current validation process, and if they deliberately avoided triggering that threshold in testing, then we're no longer talking about a loophole. We're talking about a system designed to deceive. And that's what pushed the other teams to act. Not because Mercedes was faster, but because they might have built something specifically to pass undetected. Here's where things get uncomfortable. Because even if the allegations are true, Mercedes may not have broken any rules. Not as they're currently written. The FIA's engine validation protocol is designed around static measurements. Engines are checked cold, on controlled benches, with standardized fuel flow, airflow, and electrical baselines. And as long as the unit passes those inspections, it's cleared for competition. But this compression trick, if real, operates in a different domain. It activates once the engine reaches race heat. It modifies how combustion is compressed based on internal pressure shifts, essentially unlocking a second performance map, only visible under dynamic, live-running stress. That's why the teams are so angry. Because they believe the FIA's testing process has become outdated. Not malicious, but blind. It's not the first time we've seen this. In 2019, Ferrari's fuel flow system was found to be bypassing flow sensors by exploiting the sampling frequency of the measurement itself. No hard proof ever surfaced, but the FIA responded by rewriting the sensor logic, and the performance vanished overnight. Before that, Mercedes' DAS system in 2020 exploited steering axis regulations to change tire temperatures mid-straight, technically legal, until the FIA rewrote the rulebook. And that's the problem here. Once again, we may be looking at a system that technically fits inside the lines, but only because the lines were never drawn for this level of engineering. And that opens the door to something far more serious. Because if Mercedes has found a way to legally activate a performance mode that no inspection process can detect, then every other team, whether they agree with it or not, will be forced to chase the same trick. And from that moment on, the sport enters a new kind of arms race. What's really keeping the FIA awake right now isn't just the potential legality of the trick, it's the precedent. Because if this compression shift system is allowed to stand, if it's validated, even passively, then the FIA loses something far more valuable than regulatory control. They lose authority. For years, the FIA has tried to project a sense of mastery over the hybrid era. That their systems, the sensors, the inspections, the test benches, could detect and prevent anything a team might attempt. But this goes deeper. If Mercedes has genuinely found a way to split performance modes based on internal heat states, then the FIA has no clear path to police it without rewriting the regulations. And if they rewrite the regulations now, they'll be accused of moving the goalposts again. That's what really worries them. Because this isn't the first time the FIA has been caught reacting to innovation instead of anticipating it. They were slow to clamp down on oil burn tricks. They underestimated how Ferrari gamed fuel sensors. They let Red Bull's flexible wings run for half a season before tightening the load testing. Every time, it's the same pattern. An advantage appears, the paddock erupts, and the FIA scrambles to catch up. This time, though, there's more at stake. Because if they let this go, even temporarily, it forces the rest of the grid to follow. Not because they want to, but because they'll have no choice. Suddenly, every manufacturer will start developing systems that activate under dynamic stress. Heat-triggered maps, pressure-dependent ignition profiles, even battery deployment that shifts under vibration curves. And the FIA? They won't have the tools, or the trust, to stop any of it. So this isn't just about Mercedes. It's about whether the 2026 engine formula can still be controlled at all. If the FIA confirms that Mercedes' system breaches the spirit of the rules, the fallout could be immediate. The first consequence? An emergency technical directive. Just like they did with Ferrari in 2020. Just like they did with DAS in 2021. And once that happens, once the FIA defines a new boundary, Mercedes will be forced to either disable the system or rebuild it to comply. That alone could undo months of pre-season preparation. Because this isn't a bolt-on component. It's integrated deep within the engine management software, affecting combustion logic, fuel mixing, and hybrid synchronization. If they have to rewrite it, they might not be ready for Bahrain. And if the FIA doesn't act, then the entire grid shifts into escalation mode. Every team, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault, even the independents, will be forced to develop their own version of the trick. Not to win, but just to survive. That's when things spiral. Because now you're no longer in a performance race. You're in a compliance war. Teams start operating in technical shadows. Inspectors are overwhelmed. And the margin between innovation and exploitation disappears. The sport becomes volatile. Not because of failure, but because no one knows what's legal anymore. And politically, this could fracture trust inside the Concord Agreement. Mercedes, who already holds significant influence, will be seen as having pushed the FIA into a corner. If Red Bull or Ferrari perceive this as favoritism, as the FIA being unwilling to act out of fear or optics, we could see another split emerge between the manufacturers. We've been here before. In 2009, with the double diffuser. In 2013, with engine mapping debates. In 2019, with Ferrari's secret fuel flow agreement. Every time, it ends the same way. One rule gets rewritten. And one team pays the price. The only question now is, will it be Mercedes? Or the integrity of the rulebook itself? So now, everything hangs on one decision. The FIA hasn't issued a technical directive yet. No public comment. No confirmation of an investigation. But the meeting has been requested, and the pressure is rising. because if they wait until after Bahrain, it's too late. If this system is illegal, or even questionable, it has to be addressed now. And if it's not, then the message to every other team is clear. If you can build it, and hide it, you can run it. That's the threat. Not just a power unit that may be operating in a legal gray zone, but a governing body forced to choose between precedent and stability. Because once the FIA draws the line, wherever they draw it, they'll either expose Mercedes, or expose themselves. And the timing couldn't be worse. We are less than 2 weeks from the most complex preseason in a decade. Half the grid is still behind on integration. And now, they're being forced to either copy a controversial system, or risk being left behind if the FIA stays silent. This isn't just about Mercedes gaining an edge. It's about a rulebook that may no longer be equipped to contain the engineering war it unleashed. And if this system survives the next meeting, if the FIA hesitates even for a moment, the rest of the grid will respond. Because in 2026, silence from the top is the loudest green light you can give.